fight or flight.
That's 47-year-old Michael Dunn telling the police what happened the night he shot and killed a teenage boy. Dunn is charged with first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder in the November 2012 shooting sparked by an argument over loud music. Dunn and his fiancée stopped at a gas station in Jacksonville, Florida, where 17-year-old Jordan Davis and 3 friends were parked in an SUV.
What did the defendant say?
Oh, I hate that thug music.
Dunn's fiancée, Rhonda Rower, appeared in court Saturday and testified that while she was inside the station's convenience store, an argument began in the parking lot after Dunn told Davis and his friends to turn down their music. Authorities say the argument between Dunn and Davis escalated and shots were fired.
I heard pop, pop, pop.
And now
Dunn's fiancée gave a tearful account of what happened next.
Oh my God, somebody's shooting!
After hearing more gunshots, she went to the car, and Dunn told her to get in.
as you got back in the passenger side of the car, did you see a firearm at that point in time?
Yes, Michael was putting it into the glove box.
The prosecution maintains Dunn had fired at the parked SUV with his 9mm handgun, killing Davis.
Michael David Dunn pointed a semi-automatic pistol at 4 unarmed kids from a distance much closer than you and I, and then drove off. He didn't call the police. He went to his hotel with his girlfriend, and he called a pizza delivery man and ordered pizza. He took his little dog for a walk outside the hotel, turned on a movie, and made himself a big, tall rum and coke. And not long after, an emergency doctor at Shands Hospital pronounced Jordan Davis dead. That defendant put his head on his hotel pillow and went to sleep.
I shot 4 times.
Dunn, who has pleaded not guilty, admits shooting Davis, but claims it was self-defense because he feared for his life and thought Davis had a gun.
You're going to hear bang, 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 bang. That quick. And that says Mr. Davis was getting out of the car to try to kill or hurt with a deadly weapon Michael Dunn. They back out behind him, right behind Mr. Dunn's car. Mr. Dunn puts his gun out the window with his door open, and as they drive away, doesn't want fire back because he got a perfect shot at the back of Mr. Dunn's head. And he puts 2 bullets low into the car, and as you can see, the bullets go up. And you'll hear it. Bang, bang, bang. Quick. No long pause.
With a white defendant and a black victim, the trial has generated national attention because of the parallels with the Trayvon Martin case. Martin, a black 17-year-old, was shot and killed by George Zimmerman, who is white, in early 2012 during a dispute in Sanford, Florida. Zimmerman was acquitted. Following the verdict, President Barack Obama surprised many by commenting from the White House on the case that captivated the country.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago.
Today it was another father who took the stand to talk about the loss of his son. In the case of Michael Dunn, police say no weapon was found in Davis's vehicle.
At any point that night, did you see anybody take a weapon of any kind out of that car?
No, sir.
But the defense argues the teens had time to dispose of a weapon and that Dunn had the right to defend himself under Florida's controversial Stand Your Ground law.
If this was a premeditated designed murder, a premeditated designed attempt murder, where Mr. Dunn fled Duval County because he knew he murdered someone with the intent and maliciousness to convict someone of that charge, he goes home. He doesn't go to an airport.
The jury is sequestered throughout this trial, which is expected to last another week. If convicted, Dunn faces life in prison.
Trayvon Martin, Jordan Davis are two of at least 26 children and teens who died in Florida Stand Your Ground cases. America Tonight's Sarah Hoy has been following these cases closely. So where do things stand now in this case?
Well, as you know, the prosecution rested. So what's going to come up next and what has everybody talking is Michael Dunn going to take the stand? And as you know, with the Zimmerman trial, George Zimmerman did not take the stand. And that was something that took a lot of people by surprise, and then others it did not. It's one of the hardest things that I think defendants have to think about. Do you take the stand in your own defense? So that's going to be coming up, and we don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, you know, the other comparison that would have to be made would be the emotional response that Trayvon Martin's case drew. And yet we're not seeing that kind of, I mean, you were there, you remember what that was like. After Trayvon Martin's case was in trial, it was as though a crowd was on the scene every single minute.
You are absolutely right, and there were hoodie marches. There were people outside the courtroom during the entire, jury deliberation. I mean, it was charged, it was heated. People were constantly discussing it. Had remnants of O.J. Simpson trial. People were talking about this at the gas station, at their homes, at the barbershop, wherever it was. And with this trial, people are paying attention, but it almost seems as though the general public is defeated, meaning that Trayvon was a disappointment. You heard from the president. He had to address the nation about this. Right. And so here we are wondering, what's going to happen with this?
Well, we want to bring on a little additional discussion on this subject. The Stand Your Ground law was passed in Florida almost 9 years ago. Since 2005, the Tampa Bay Times identified 237 Stand Your Ground cases. Of the 214 resolved, almost 70% of the accused have gone free. Thena Robinson Mock is an attorney and project director of the Advancements Project's Schoolhouse to Jailhouse track campaign. She's with us tonight. When you talk about that set of the defendants going free, and there are a lot of indications, at least evidence, that there may be some racial component to it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the biggest problem with Stand Your Ground. It has there's racial bias inherent in that law. And I think what we see are that there are stark disparities. When it comes to the victim, we see disparities in how those killings are labeled as justified. It's a serious problem.
Yeah, so where does this move in terms of the racial disparity there? What do you see? Evidence that both black defendants, white defendants, perpetrators, how does it break down?
Yeah, it seems like it breaks down when we look at the victim. So in cases where the victim is black, we often find that when Stand Your Ground is invoked, that's when those killings are labeled as justified. And that is just tragic. And we see this implicit bias in so many different places within this law.
Right, and we have seen some of the reports on this. There are some statistics when an older white man shoots a younger black man, the courts find the homicide justifiable about half the time, only 8% when this is reversed. What does this tell us about the use of the law?
I think what it tells us is that there isn't a need for it. I would argue that when it comes to Stand Your Ground, there's no evidence that it improves public safety. What it does show, though, is that the behavior of a victim is caught up in this racial bias, and when we look at what's perceived as a threat, it matters what the race of the victim is.
And Sarah, do you see that sort of played out in how people respond to these cases?
Absolutely. It becomes of, what did he do, right? Or who was this person, right? And it changes. And even here in one of the studies that you had also mentioned, the 17% of the time, if it's a white shooter, it's justified, and 1%, I believe, if it was the opposite. So then my question then becomes, so what message does that send?
The message that it sends is that we don't value black and brown bodies. What it sends is that when it comes to who when these laws are applied, what it says to us is that it matters what race the victim is. It matters who's perpetuating these crimes. It's just so tragic. Jordan Davis would have been 19 years old on February the 16th, and now his parents are forced to sit in a courtroom. It's just a shame that we have this, and what I am hopeful of is that we will take a close look at this and realize that we need to repeal these Stand Your Ground laws.
Well, speaking of that hope, where do you go from here? How easy is it to change the books?
Well, it's not that easy, but we can do it if we mobilize. Stand Your Ground laws exist in about 31 states. We can do this, but we've got to have critical mass, people really, involved.